Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, Active Shooter Response by Brian Lancaster. I am Peggy West, your organizer for today of the webinars of Smart Cams. I have some interesting information to share with you. What you might want to know is overall crime in Florida was down in 2020, but violent crimes have since rose. Statistics are showing that gun violence was used in 80% of the murders in the state of Florida. So I'm very anxious to hear what Brian has to say today. Before I do that and get started, I want to introduce our sponsors who invited you today. And I want to thank you all sponsors for your e-blasting to invite the guests. First, I'll briefly just introduce myself again because I also sell pool and patio furniture for condominiums and homeowners association with beach and patio outdoor living. We are full service and we can also help you with designing your patio, which will increase your property value. Next, I want to introduce the wind beneath my wings. That is Layla Scola. She is the head of customer success and marketing for Vinteum software and also IT support. Layla, tell us about yourself and the company.
Thank you, Peggy. My name's Layla. I'm the head of marketing customer success here at Vinteum. I've been working with the company for 5 years now. Vinteum is a software company. We've been in the market for almost 10 years. We provide websites and password protected secure portals for HOAs and condominiums across Florida and the whole of North America. So to improve communication and management, it is great to have a website. And do get in touch with me if you're interested.
Yes, great. And they also have some great pricing. I want to give special recognition to her assistant, Yasmin Johannes, who helps quite a bit. And please thank her for me as well. Next, I want to introduce our host for today, which is M2 Engineering. This is for the Orlando-centric area primarily, but we have invited many others. I want to introduce Georgette Carousel. She's an engineer and also the Tampa marketing manager. And today our webinar, our sponsor, moderator. Okay. Tell us
Good
about
afternoon,
yourself,
everyone.
Georgette.
I'm Georgette from M2E, and M2E does everything. We are a one-stop shop for all of your engineering needs. We have over 100 engineers on our staff, and we do everything from the very hot topic of structural integrity reserve studies. We do milestone inspections, both phase 1 and phase 2. We do forensic engineering for anywhere that you are getting water within your building or anything that you have structural issues. We do provide litigation support for your 558 turnovers, and we do concrete restoration and construction administration through all parts. We also do property condition assessments and owner's representative. If you have any questions or you would like a proposal, feel free to shoot me an email right here. Thanks.
Hey, thanks, Georgette. I also want to give special recognition to Rudy Martin, who's not on the call today, but he is their director at M2E Engineering of Business Development, Strategic Planning, and also the Orlando, Tampa, and the South Florida market. I also want to recognize Autumn O'Brien. She is your Orlando marketing manager who is not feeling well today, but is on the call. So feel better, Autumn. Thank you so much. Next, I'll let Brian introduce Travis Foster for Owens.
Oh yeah, Travis couldn't make it on, but Owens Corning is one of the top shingle manufacturers in the world. They are best known in the multifamily world because they offer a true 20-year workmanship warranty that can be very helpful for those communities. If you've had a lot of repairs over the years and you're looking to replace your roof, we are the top. Southern Roofing Restoration is the #1 Owens Corning purchaser in the country. So we are the top platinum warranty carrier, and we can offer that along with Owens Corning to your communities, which is quite interesting these days to save money in the long run. So Travis couldn't make it, but Owens Corning, they're backed by the Pink Panther, but most importantly by Good Housekeeping, and they're the only roofing company backed by Good Housekeeping, and just incredible. They invented they put the fiberglass in shingles. They're the ones who started that whole process. So anyway, just a nice little side note, but Travis is the rep for most of Florida, and he couldn't be here, so I'm introducing them. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, next I want to introduce Art Pragan. He's our Valcourt construction representative today. Tell us about yourself, Art, and also Valcourt.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. Just wanted to reconfirm that you guys are in for a great, informative, and educational seminar. First of all, thank you to M2E and all the sponsors for making this happen, and obviously also you, the audience, for jumping on the call and participating. As stated, my name is Art Pragan, and I have the privilege of leading the growth, marketing, and the safety strategy here at Valcourt Building Services, Florida. For those of you guys on the call that might not be as familiar with Valcourt, we are an all-inclusive building envelope general contractor that has been partnering with property managers and associations and serving the Sunshine State for over 25 years. We only work on existing structures and love condo and commercial property projects. Our specialties range from your basic paint and coating jobs to waterproofing, stucco, concrete restoration and repair, as well as window and sliding glass door replacement. No job is too small, no job is too big. Our expertise also include pool and patio deck sealing and waterproofing, railing replacement, as well as light to heavy concrete repair of parking garages. You know, all the hard stuff, post-tension and carbon fiber. So no matter if you're building and the project is in need of a simple paint and or seal job or could benefit from a structural upgrade, Valcourt is your one-stop source for your exterior needs. To summarize, I think we all probably heard of the Champlain Towers collapse 2 years ago, all the damage, suffering, and the lives lost. Well, in a nutshell, Valcourt, we prevent things like that from happening. So thank you for your time again. I would love to earn your business and your trust moving forward. Thank you for having us.
Okay, thanks, Art. Great introduction. Okay, now I would like to introduce Michelle Sedlaski with City National Bank. Michelle, please introduce yourself and your company.
Sure. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Michelle Sedlaski, and I am the Relationship Manager, AVP for City National Bank. I work solely in the homeowner and condo association industry. We are headquartered in Coral Gables, but I cover the west coast of Florida out to Orlando, Jacksonville, anything on the west coast down to Naples. But we have been serving Florida for 75 years, and we probably serve over 3,000 to 4,000 associations for any banking need, whether it's operating reserve accounts. We are doing lending. We have the ICS program to insure your funds beyond the FDIC limit. If you have any projects or repairs, we are doing lending, so you can contact us. I know they share our information. So if you have any questions about what's about excess funds or loan opportunities, we do handle 558 loans. So if you're looking to bridge some funds until you get claim, at capacity as well. So my name is Michelle Sedlaski, City National Bank of Florida, and we are the second largest Florida-based bank. Thank you.
Awesome. I didn't know that. Wonderful. Okay, great. Last, I have a sponsor, Brad Mortensen. He's with RepCard. Brian, again, would you like to tell us about them?
He tried to get on, but he was having trouble with his audio. But so RepCard is a digital business card platform. You're going to see a QR code at the end of this presentation that is based on RepCard. It's just a great way to you can put a QR code on the back of your phone right here, and that's RFID. So I can just tap it on your phone and give you my business card right away. I became a fan of RepCard a couple years back and have been just using it more than my business cards ever since. It's a great way to stay in touch with people. It's a great way to network. It's a great way to follow up with the people in your contacts. And it's just really simple, and you can put all your information in it. You can put videos, and people can leave you reviews, and it's just a really simple but technically advanced program that replaces your business card.
Perfect. Okay, great. Sounds exciting. And thank you, Vanna White down there, Miss Georgette, showing the rep card on the back. Want
Thank
to
you.
mention a couple of things before I do turn this over to Brian, but all of the Q&A section questions will be held to the end of the presentation. So please be patient, put your questions in, of course, as we go along. And if we do not get a chance to answer all the questions, or Brian doesn't get to answer the questions, we will be copying these and sending them to Brian. So if you want a response, you may put in your email address or phone number. The Q&A section is for the guests. The chat box is for our sponsors to put in your name and contact information if you like. However, at the end of the presentation, everyone will be sent a sponsor sheet, and it will have the contact information of all the sponsors that are on today. With that, I want to introduce our speaker today, Brian Lancaster. The background on Brian is he is in law enforcement as a former SWAT operator and a SWAT instructor. A SWAT operator is called in when situations present significant risks to the police officers or to the public. Brian is a former state certified firearms instructor, a special weapons instructor, and a defensive tactic instructor. He is also a former member of the National Tactical Officers Association and the National Domestic Preparedness Coalition. Brian will be teaching on how to best prepare for being caught in an active shooter situation and know what to do and be prepared. With that, Brian also is the vice president for, I believe, the entire state of Florida, right, Brian?
For the entire company from Arkansas to Florida.
Arkansas to Florida, wow. Okay, for Southern Roofing and
Renovations.
So Brian, please tell us, we're excited to hear what you have to tell us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Welcome to everybody. And Georgette is going to be monitoring. If there are questions that pertain to what I'm speaking to, I will pause and answer as I'm able to. This is a very intense topic, you know, active shooter, mass shootings, they're happening all the time at unprecedented rate. You know, why is she gave you a little bit of my background. So, you know, Peggy mentioned my background. You know, people often ask me, why is a roofing contractor teaching on this topic? But it's dear to my heart. I'm really big on preparation, not to be paranoid, but to be prepared. And this class is really about mindset. You are going to get an HR credit. Those are hard to come by. I hope you learn one thing that can save your life or somebody else's life. And the first thing I just want to start with is that no one has the right to take your life. And I want you to say that to yourself. No one has the right to take my life. And so with that, as we get into some of the things you're going to be exposed to, some of it's pretty tough. If you've ever, if you know anybody, or maybe you have someone that was affected by Pulse nightclub, I'm going to play some audio and video from that is very intense. So just be prepared for the emotional response because it's real. And we're going to get right into the presentation.
Good evening. Scott is off tonight. I'm Nora O'Donnell. Today, we heard chilling accounts of the terror in an Orlando nightclub. The Orange County Sheriff's Office released recordings of frantic calls to 911 on that June night when a gunman opened fire, killing 49 people. It was the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. Mark Strassman, who covered the massacre, has the just released audio.
We were leaving the club, and then as soon as we left, gunshots were just going like crazy.
At 2:03 a.m., 911 callers began reporting a massacre in progress.
It's hot poles. There's dead people everywhere. They're shooting.
Right after last call, a gunman with a semi-automatic rifle roamed through the crowded gay nightclub.
Yes, my son was shot in the club in the Pulse in Orlando, and he's still in the bathroom when he's bleeding. He got shot. Nobody's going in for.
He's coming on. He's coming on. He needs to go.
This is the first release of 911 recordings from people who were actually inside the club when the massacre began.
There are now 4 dead in the bathroom and 2 shots are bleeding now. If somebody doesn't get there soon, they're gonna die.
Police body camera video showed the chaos as first responders arrived. 911 calls also kept coming, some from relatives of people still trapped inside. As they hid in bathrooms like those in this cell phone video, they texted or called their families, who then called 911.
My friend told me he got shot 3 times. He's in the bathroom, needed help. I'm not there. I can't do nothing.
50 people would die, including the mass killer, Omar Mateen, around 5 a.m. after a 3-hour standoff. The 29-year-old former security guard was shot 8 times by police. Orlando police.
So far in 2023, the Pulse was absolutely tragic in that, in 2016 was just a horrible time for Florida and Central Florida. So far, as of January, in January, we had more mass shootings than all of January's previously. And then I'm going to take it a step further beyond January, just so you understand the gravity and the reality of what's going on. And, you see it in the news, but let me just share a couple more things before we talk about some of what we're going to cover.
America has had 39 mass shootings. That is more than any of the last 5 Januaries in this country. And according to the Gun Violence Archive, which tracks this kind of thing, we are now on pace to outpace last year's total of 647 mass shootings. The definition, by the way, is 4 or more victims, not including the gunman. And yes, this is a uniquely American problem. We have more than 8 times the rate of gun violence deaths in this country as in Canada, and nearly 100 times more than Britain. According to one survey, guys, the U.S. is the only country in the world where there are more guns than there are people.
Sorry, there we go. All right, so that was January, 39. Now we're up to 84 so far, and that was a month ago today, as of February 23rd, 2023. And we've had several more since then. So it's just something that's happening. It's something that we need to be prepared for. And I want you to start thinking mentally, when this happens around me. I mean, if some of you are in South Florida, you've had devastating active shooting situations down there. Nowhere is immune to violence, and nowhere is immune to the devastation of active shooters or mass shootings. Absolutely horrible. I want you to hear this 911 call just to kind of get a grasp of what it sounds like.
What?
What is that? What is she saying? What is happening?
Somebody just entered the room.
Okay. Who is it that entered the room?
The police?
I love you. It's not.
Is it the police?
No, it's not the police.
Police. Okay, so put your hands up.
Yes.
Oh, the police are here.
Police officer? 911, what is your emergency? Huh? Please, my son called me now that he's shooting in high school. And I texted him, and then he texted me in Portuguese, because it was Portuguese, and he said, "God, Mom, God." Okay, we do have a call put in for dispatch. There are multiple police officers and fire rescue on the way out there. Okay. Hello. Is there shot up? Are you at the school? I can't hear you. Are you at the school? Hello, 911, ma'am, go ahead. My son is in Stillman Douglas High School. He said he heard noises and talks, and he thinks there's a shooting going on at the school. Okay, we do have police on scene.
Maybe you were part of that. Maybe you were affected by that. That was in Parkland down in South Florida. Absolutely devastating. I'm going to move past this Colorado incident, but I want you to see if you can pick me out. So my background is SWAT operations, SWAT training. I taught from the academy level all the way to SWAT operators. I was active SWAT for about 18 years. And, you know, the training that we go through is very intense and specific and live. This is not a active shooter training in terms of using simunitions and live scenarios. This is mental and mindset training. But I want to see if you can pick me out. So this was my team here in the last time that I was on SWAT, Central Florida Metro SWAT. And if you can pick me out, type it in the comments, see if you can call out the row and where I'm at. And I'll give you about 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, there I am. So obviously no more facial hair, a little bit rounder in the face. So, you know,
Great job, Carolina.
Someone picked me out. Oh, that's awesome.
She found that you were in the right row. So
there you go. All right. Looks good. I'll take it. I'll make sure I get her information. I'll send her a gift card for some coffee. All right. So this was me in full operation mode, ready to go out to, we were getting ready to go take out a bad guy that had threatened to kill his wife. And we were en route and this picture was taken. So, you know, with that type of background and training and experience, this is why I'm teaching this, because I want to help people have at least a shift in their mind. I want to help you have a shift in your mind. You know, starting with that first thing that I said is I want you to hold on to that no one has the right to take your life. And the purpose of this class is because there's so much of an increase in mass shootings, in you know, active shooter, workplace violence. And I want to really encourage you to develop a plan. I want you to develop a plan in your mind. I want you to develop a plan that's realistic. I want you to think about evacuation. I want you to think about your individual response and actions. I want you to think about, where am I going to go to when this happens, wherever I'm at, not only where you're at right now, but when you go to a restaurant, when you go to a meeting, when you go to an office, when you go to a community. Identifying places of safety, places of staging and meeting, identifying and coming together with your team to say, hey, if this happens or when this happens, this is where we need to get to. This is the safest place to be. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And this is really all about increasing your situational awareness. It's about, you know, instilling a sense of security in yourself and also in your workplace and in your communities. So the reality is that we are going to face something challenging no matter what. The reality has a way of just imposing itself on us, regardless of whether or not we want it to or not. And that happens in our lives all the time. Things happen that we have no control over, and we have to face it. And we have to be able to respond to it. And the typical response when bad things happen is people either freeze up or run away, right? They freeze up or run away. The other thing that they do is fight. So they stop, they freeze, they run, or they fight. And so there's kind of three main responses that are going to happen. And I want you to think about ahead of time, and we're going to get into some specific things that you can do practically, but I want you to start thinking about the reality of when something really tough has happened to you. Have you kind of curled up into a ball and just started crying because that's how you process? We're emotional beings. There's no judgment. There's nothing wrong with that, but that can happen. Or do you run and get away from it and say, I'm out, I'm leaving? And you know, we do that in relationships sometimes, right? When we have bad things happen in our relationships, we're like, I'm out. I leave the house, take a breather, get out of there. You know, all those same things apply to real life-threatening situations. So when we're preparing for a mass violence situation or mass shooting or active shooter situation, It's super essential to consider this. Most casualties occur during the first few minutes before law enforcement even arrives on scene. Law enforcement can be there maybe 3 minutes if you're lucky, but most likely 5 to 10 minutes. And there's a lot that can happen. If that situation is real and happening live, then you're going to have to do something, in that time frame. And it's going to rely on you, not on outside help. It's a lot of people don't realize this, but there's only about one officer per 15,000 people, one police officer per 15 to 20,000 people. Some communities that are smaller might have one officer to maybe 8,000 people, but think about that for a minute. One officer for 15,000 people. So if something major is happening and all the police are going there, what if something major happens somewhere else? Or, think about how many officers can actually get to you in a timely manner. So relying on them is not realistic. You are going to have to do something before they get there. And when escape is impossible, stopping the gunman is the only course of action. And that there you will come to a place where there is no other choice. And I'm going to show you a video where there's a hero just not too long ago. He stopped the gunman by disarming him. It was amazing. And I'm not saying that's what you should do. We're going to talk about running and hiding and fighting and knowing your limitations and knowing your capabilities. Again, this is not a training how to prepare physically. I can recommend all sorts of training and different things that can help you prepare. But this is mindset, thinking about when this happens, this is what I'm going to do mentally. I'm preparing myself. And this is not a firearms course. This is not a respond with a weapon. This is a, what am I going to do in the moment with what I have? So let's define mass shootings. So mass shootings defined, the definition of a mass shooting differs from source to source, but the Gun Violence Archives defines a mass shooting as a single incident in which 4 or more people are shot, not including the shooter, in the same incident in roughly the same time and place. The Congressional Research Service doesn't have an official definition for mass shootings, but relies on the definition of a mass killing, which is 3 or more killings in a single incident. And that came about from the Violent Crimes Act of 2012 that became law in 2013 after the gunman tragically killed those 27 kids at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut. And so those are some basic definitions for you, so you understand what they are. Sorry, my clicker is not helping me. Sorry, I apologize. The number of mass shootings in the last few years have dramatically increased. From 2014 to 2019, the average was 349 in a year. From 2020 to 2022, the average was 649. So if you look at these statistics, they're pretty powerful. In 2021, 693 mass shooting incidents claimed 702 lives, injured 2,844 people. When you define it as 4 or more people being shot, 2021's total is 13.5% higher than 2020's total. So let's look a little bit deeper into the statistics to understand. So between 2020 and 2022, 1,947 mass shootings, killed 1,890 people, left over 8,000 injured. When people that are math-minded and very analytical, they go, well, how are there more mass shootings than people killed? Because it's not about the number of people killed, it's about the number of people injured and killed. So it's, over 8,000 people injured, 1,890 people were killed, 1,947 mass shootings. In Las Vegas, we witnessed the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. In November 1st, 2017, the gunman opened fire on a crowd of 22,000 people attending the country music festival there. 58 lives and over 500 people injured. Absolutely tragic. Before that, just a year before, 49 people lost their lives tragically at the Orlando Pulse nightclub. More than 50 people were wounded. And, that was the deadliest mass shooting before the one in Las Vegas. And absolute, just the reality of these incidents are just so heavy on my heart. And, you know, there are people, I've already seen a comment. I haven't seen all the comments, but there was somebody in the notes in the chat that said that they were involved in an active shooter situation. And man, my heart goes out to you. I can't imagine. I have not been in an active shooter situation. I'm going to share some stories and some scenarios that I've been in that are really close. But, you know, your comment really touched my heart. And I apologize that I don't remember your name in it, but I'll go back and make sure to look at that again. But the worst mass shooting in U.S. history, I want you to take a look at this as we just understand the gravity.
Tonight, the sheriff here revealing the worsening toll, at least 59 now dead, more than 500 injured. What they've now discovered in the suspect's Nevada home, his family, you'll hear from them tonight, and the faces of the victims. But first, what began to play out shortly after 10 p.m. local time right here in Las Vegas last night. ABC senior national correspondent Matt Gutman leading us off.
The chaos unfolding in the heart of the Las Vegas Strip. 10:08 p.m., 22,000 country music fans packed in, enjoying the Route 91 Harvest Festival. But high above them on the 32nd floor of the glittering Mandalay Bay Resort, police say 64-year-old Stephen Paddock was watching. They say he hammered through the hotel's thick windows and started firing on music stops and he runs off stage. The audience huddling on the ground. The Mandalay looming over them. For so many, confusion. Was this part of the show?
That's just a firecracker.
Why would you do that? Seconds later, the rapid fire shooting starts again. Terrified people pile on top of each other, sheltering behind anything they could. But they were in an open field, easy targets for the gunmen in the tower. I don't know where to go. Thousands looking for safety anywhere, even a stranger's car.
Relax, relax.
It was early this morning we found Mike Kronk, head in hands, still stained with his friend's blood.
He got hit 3 times. And
Mike had used his shirt to keep his friend from bleeding out.
you guys are trying to do triage while the shooting is still going on. Yeah, everybody was jumping over the fences and stuff. But I mean, there's no way I'm going to leave my buddy. You know, we had to keep compression on this thing.
As an army of police descended high above the panicked crowds, SWAT teams are closing in on the shooter. They approach his hotel door armed with an explosive.
Breach.
Police say they found Paddock dead inside. He had killed himself.
Right now, we need your truck. We just need to get.
Absolutely tragic. You know, just those events and you know, I think it's important to see and realize the intense, the what's happening, so many emotions, so many things that are confusing. You know, I started by saying, you know, no one has the right to take your life. I want you to take a look at a few statistics here. This was published on the right side of the screen, February 12, 2023. The total number of gun violent deaths at the top there. See it right there. Can you see that? Okay, 44,306. All right, that was for the 2022 year. All right, so in 2022, 44,306. Now that's a lot. It's absolutely horrible. But I want you to look at the number of mass shootings. There were 648. Now I want you to look at this number, the suicide number, 24,090. And I started by saying that no one has the right to take your life, but I want to take a moment and help you understand the second key point of what I want you to take away from today. And that's your life matters. you have things, they're not necessarily you, but there are people on here, or you know people that are on here, or you're on here and you know people that are outside of here that are struggling with their own emotions. You guys as cams are overworked, over expected. The constant stress. I used to liken it to the law enforcement stress that I used to, deal with. It's constant. You have to be judge, jury, counselor. You have to be everything to everybody around you. And that can take a toll on your emotions, and it can make you feel like your life is not as valuable as you think it is. And I want you to know the people on here, the sponsors on here, Peggy, Georgette, Art, Michelle, we care about you. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this class, is because we want you to understand the importance of your life. In about 1996, it was 1997. Actually, I'm sorry, my emotions are getting me a little bit. I went to visit my grandfather in Northern California. And when I went to visit him, I went to visit him because I found out that he was told he had terminal cancer and that he was dying of cancer, and he had a certain amount of time to live. So I went up to visit him, and I spent some time with my grandfather, about a couple hours. And he was going through all these things that he wanted me to be aware of for him passing. And then my grandpa was the kind of guy that once he got to a certain point with people, he just wanted time by himself, and that was normal for him. So I said, all right, Grandpa, I'll see you later, and I'll come back and check on you. Maybe we can have dinner together. And I went out to my car, and I sat in the car. And as I sat in the car, I heard a gunshot. I knew it was a gunshot. I hadn't been in law enforcement at the time. I was very young. I'm still young, but I heard this gunshot, and I just knew in my gut. And I went up into the house, and I opened the door, and I called out, Grandpa, Grandpa. And I no response. And I looked down the hallway. And as I looked down the hallway to his master bedroom, he had these mirrored sliding closet doors. And in the reflection of the mirror, I could see the bathroom door was closed. Now, my grandpa didn't close the bathroom door no matter what he was doing in the bathroom. So, and you can laugh. It's funny. I laugh still, but I knew something was wrong. And so when I went up to that bathroom door, I could hear him struggling to breathe. I could hear him trying to get breath. And all I wanted to do was break into that door, but there's a phone there. I didn't have a cell phone at the time, or I might have one of those big ones, but I called 911, and I'm like, my grandfather shot himself. My grandfather shot himself. And it just all imploded on me. And everything that went through me was, I need to help him. I need to stop whatever's happening. But the dispatcher said, don't go in there. And I found out later why. It didn't make sense at the time, but he shot himself in the head. And if I would have went in there and he was still armed, he could potentially not know who I am and take a shot at me as well. And the other thing is, my instinct was to stop the bleeding. And if I would have stopped the bleeding on the head, it would have made it worse and would have made him pass quicker, because a head injury does not need compression. It needs other things that I wasn't prepared for. So the gravity of this is that for me, my grandfather, it was the most selfish thing he could have done. And I share that with you because suicide deaths are extremely higher percentage rate than mass shooting or active shooting. There's more likely you're going to be connected with somebody who's taken their life than being involved in a mass shooter or active shooter. Now, granted, we need to be prepared and we want to understand what to do, and we'll get into that. But I like to take this time in this class for this moment to remind you that your matters. Percentage of gun deaths by mass shootings are 1.4%. Percentage of gun deaths by mass shootings. And that was for 2022. What do you think the percentage of gun deaths by suicide is? Type an answer. If you remember the number, you can do the math.
3.6.
3.6?
6%. 67%. 5%.
67% is closer.
50%.
Closest. 54.3%. And this is why I share this, is because it's a reality, and it's a sad reality. But again, no one has the right to take your life, and your life matters. And I would go as far as saying, you don't have the right to take your life, because your life matters. And if you're struggling with your value, I need you to know there's somebody around you that cares and wants to be there for you. And I need you to understand that if you're struggling with anything like that, I want you to reach out to me personally, and let's chat, let's talk, because that is reality. There's a percentage of people on here that are struggling. All right, enough of the emotional stuff. I apologize, but it's important to me to share that. That's my heart. I care about people, and I want to see you valued and living. And let's get into the active shooter stuff in more detail. So what is an active shooter? We define the mass shooting. An active shooter is a subject or subjects actively engaged, killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. Primary is firearms as their weapon, but no necessary pattern or method or selection of victims. Not always a lone shooter. If you think back to the Columbine shooting that kind of got all this shifted in our mindset, it was, two shooters, and they had all sorts of different devices and bombs planted and so forth throughout the school, and absolute tragic incident. But it could be an immediate coworker, could be a tenant, could be a planned terrorist attack. What happened in August to the association community in Atlanta? Does anyone remember what happened in August? It was a disgruntled tenant that went up and shot the manager, and shot and killed and injured one other. Killed one and injured another. Absolutely tragic. And so active shooters they're a real thing. So what do we do? What do we do to survive an active shooter incident? When it's happening, what do you do? What is the first thing that comes to mind? I want you to put a response in the comments. Someone's shooting, you hear gunfire down the hall in your office. Where do you go? What do you do? Grab my cig. I can respect that. Get out, run for your life, find a safe place, move away from the gunfire, get under a desk, take cover, call 911, hide, grab away. All of these are great responses. All of these are within, your capabilities, what you're able to do. So this video I'm about to show you is shown across the country. You may have seen it before if you've ever taken one of these classes. Maybe the presentation was a little bit different, but this video is used in most of these types of classes. I'm going to share it. We're going to go through it, and then we're going to talk about it.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you're out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911.
Run if there's an escape path, attempt to evacuate, leave your belongings behind, help others if possible, prevent others from entering the area, call 911 as you can when you're safe.
If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm.
Lock or block the door, silence your cell phone, hide behind large objects.
As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what.
Incapacitate the shooter if possible. Act with physical aggression. Improvise weapons. And commit.
Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
So run, hide, fight. A lot of you put some version of that on there with some other variations, which are all the right things to do for saving your life or the life of others. But you know, when an active shooter situation is happening, you know, who do you notify? What do you do? How does it work? You know, it's going to be mayhem. It's going to be craziness. It's going to be all sorts of things going, depending on what's happening in that moment is going to determine what you do. But let's just talk about some notification and how to notify folks and who do you notify. But when you're dialing 911, you want to give as much detail as possible. You want to describe the suspect, you know, blue jacket, yellow shirt, glasses, you know, blonde hair, gold chain, you know, dark jacket, glasses, long hair, fair complexion, whatever you can describe so they understand. They don't know who the bad guy is. The police don't know that. If you saw the videos, every video I've shown so far, people are leaving the area as police are arriving, hands up, open hands, because they don't know if that person is a suspect leaving, trying to get out with the crowd. And so as much description as possible, direction of travel, location and condition of victims, if possible, number and types of weapons. Just a quick example for number of types of weapons. When 2010-ish, there was a active shooter situation in the city where I was working as a police officer. I was the first officer to respond. I was there within about 2 minutes of the call coming out. As I came up to the scene, this woman, I didn't know if she was the bad guy or the victim or what, but she was running at me, and I couldn't see her hands, and I'm like, hands, hands, hands. And she puts her hands up, and then as I'm looking at her, I realize that she is the victim. She's got blood coming off her face, blood coming out of her side, her abdomen. And they're like, they're gonna kill my son, they're gonna kill my husband. And I'm asking her, like, how many? Who are they? She's trying to describe. She's like, they've got guns. I'm like, are they small guns or big guns? I'm trying to understand what I'm about to face. And so she's describing as much as possible, and she's in trauma. She's been shot. We're trying to provide emergency care to her. I got other officers arriving on scene. One arrived, and when he arrived, we waited for a third officer to be with her, to go to the house, to try to just quell this situation that was going bad quickly. We thought it was live happening right then and there. As we get to the house, we're approaching very carefully, and we can see inside the house, and the husband is wrapped like he was a hostage in the Middle East. He had black head thing around his head. He was duct taped around his hands and his ankles. And he's like, they're going to kill my son. They're going to kill my son. And so we pull him out, and the officers and I made a decision to go into the house and carefully make our way through the house methodically. We're seeing bullets, blood, all sorts of things going on in there that were evident of dramatic violence. And so at the last room that we get to, the son was there and he was fine. The shooters had left the scene. But this woman, I need to share with you what she did. What she did was, not only she did give the description of people, and we got more details as we're searching, other officers were finding out more details, but this woman, they were about to execute her and her family. She was held hostage in her home for several days. And what she did is, when they were about to kill her, she threw herself out the second-story window of her home. She did what she had to do, and she survived. And then she made her way to the neighbor's house. And as she's going to the neighbor's house, they're shooting at her. They shoot her in the stomach, or from the back to the stomach, and found out later that she was pregnant with child, and that baby lived and survived. But this woman was the hero of this story. And there's actually a show on it called Surviving Evil on Discovery Crime Channel, and just powerful, powerful testimony of doing what you got to do. Found out later that my in-car camera caught the bad guys leaving. They were leaving in a black Audi that was owned by the victim, and they were passing me as I was entering the neighborhood, and the house where it was happening was way in the back of the neighborhood. But all of the details of what she gave helped us identify and eventually hunt down and arrest and take down this group that held her family hostage. But one of the key things of that story, though, is she did what she had to do to save her family, to save her life and her family's lives. But dialing 911 is critical. One other 911 story, when I was a detective, there was a call that came into dispatch. 911 answered it, and they couldn't hear the caller. They heard faint voice in the background. And after a few minutes, the 911 dispatcher realized that the caller was being held hostage with several other people, and they were about to kill these people. This shooter was about to kill these people in this home. Officers arrived on scene within minutes. This shooter decided to go out and check. He didn't know who was out there, but he heard something outside the house, came outside with his gun. When thank God that there was enough information taken from the 911 call to identify what was going on. The officer that shot and killed
the gunman, he's not the hero. He was a hero, but the real hero was this lady, this young lady in this house that was able to dial 911 silently and just let the phone sit there so that the dispatcher could hear what was happening in this situation. Absolutely dramatic, incredible hero moment for this young lady. And that's why I put this in here. If you can't speak, leave the phone line open, allow 911 to hear what's going on. So how do we notify coworkers, tenants in our communities? How do we implement something into, that? We're going to, let's go back here for a second. Sorry. I hit the wrong direction. All right. So there are systems that you can have in your communities that auto dial, that give out information. These days, the home phone thing isn't really in existence. So it's got to be a active cell phone number. There are different companies that provide this service where you can push out, and maybe you already have one of those pieces of those tools where you can push out the information that's important. You do it for notifications for board meetings, or you do it for notifications of certain things in the community. You can have one of those in place to notify community, to notify employees, making sure all your employees and your coworkers are on a notification system that, hey, something bad happens, this is how we're going to notify each other, whether it's a technical system or a planned, text system, or however it is that you need to set it up. But it's super important that you have something in place to notify the people that are important in your community and the people you work with. So let's talk a little bit about run, hide, and fight. So when you're running, when you're getting away from the active shooter situation, you don't want to stop and help wounded people. As much as you want to do that, if you stop, you can be putting your life at risk. If you're able to carry someone out and firemen carry them, awesome. But you need to get out of there. And when you're able to give a description of the wounded inside, that's what you need to do. And assembling at a pre-designated staging area. If you have a community and there's like a big trash can area, getting behind the trash can, or a big electrical box, getting behind the electrical box, or parking structure, getting inside behind the concrete parking structure, something that is protective, and just leaving everything else behind. Nothing else matters but your life. Your life is what matters. And if you're hiding, you want to hide out of the shooter's view. You want to silence your phones. You want to remain completely quiet. You want to stay in place and not come out until you hear an all clear from law enforcement. And you want to make sure to block a door or put something in place that keeps somebody from coming to you, so the bad guy from coming to you, and just stay completely quiet. And when you do come out of hiding, you want to make sure your hands are open. You're not coming out till it's clear law enforcement response. And it's not the bad guy trying to bait you out. You want to make sure that you're coming out for the right reason at the right time. So when you're hiding, there's a big difference between what you're hiding behind. Cover versus concealment. Concealment is something that hides you from sight. This is not very concealment, but it gives you an idea. They're trying to hide, but it's not going to stop bullets. A bush, a drywall wall, like a regular wall in your house, is not going to stop bullets. They can't see you on the other side of the wall, but if they shoot through it, you can get shot. Cover stops bullets, and cover can hide you and protect you. Concrete walls are great for cover, engine blocks, filled bookshelves, steel doors, backpacks filled with, your laptop and all sorts of stuff. Those things can potentially stop bullets. Concealment's only going to prevent someone from seeing you, not stop the bullets. The Dalai Lama says it best. Cover stops bullets, concealment stops sight. So those are like the two main things, right? Running and hiding. Those are my first two options. If I can get out of there, I get out of there. If I can hide, I hide. But like I said earlier, most casualties occur within the first few minutes before law enforcement even responds. We don't know for sure when or where an attack's going to occur, and we cannot rely on the law enforcement response to save our lives or other people's lives oftentimes. And when escape is absolutely impossible, then the only course of action is to fight. Fight active as aggressively as possible, throwing items, improvised weapons, loudly yelling at them, closing the distance, doing whatever you can to neutralize the threat. It's the last resort of what you have to do in the moment. And here's a great example of a hero that fights.
The silent security video obtained by NBC News is at once breathtaking and sobering. The man without the wool cap, who runs a California dance studio, wrestles with the man now accused in America's latest mass killing. He's grabbed the man's semi-automatic assault pistol in the panicked, near unreal, desperate scramble.
I lunged at him with both my hands. I was able to pull the gun away from him, shove him aside, create some distance, point the gun at him, intimidate him, shot him and say, "Get the hell out of here. I'll shoot. Get away. Go."
Absolute hero. Absolute hero. He did what he had to do, saved many people's lives. The shooter had already shot up another location and killed a bunch of people. Absolutely horrible. But let's get into the law enforcement response. I know we're short on time. I got a few more things to cover, and then we'll get a couple questions answered. But the law enforcement is there to not respond to the injured, but to neutralize and eliminate the threat. They're not there to provide medical care. Very critical to understand that. I'm going to bypass the video here and get into some things important to understand what to do when the officers are responding. You want to make sure you remain calm. You want to make sure to follow the officer's instructions. You want to put down any items in your hand. You want to raise your hand, spread your fingers. You want to keep your hands visible. You want to avoid making quick movements or coming up to the officer quickly. You don't want to stop and ask the officers for help. You want to just listen to what they're telling you to do and go in the direction they're telling you to go. Super, super important. I'm going to go back to this video real quick so you understand law enforcement response here, just for a moment.
After a court battle with the Star newspaper, investigators now have finally released a 434-page report on the borderline mass shooting. It includes previously unknown facts about the attack, as well as surveillance and body cam footage that's never been seen by the public. And while it is dramatic and chilling, we've deliberately avoided the more disturbing images, but of course, some of you may still find this hard to relive. Take a look.
No one that's reporting? Yeah, I heard some gunshot on borderline.
It was just after 11 o'clock on November 7th, 2018, when former Marine Ian David Long, dressed all in black, walked in the front door of the Borderline dance hall and immediately opened fire on the more than 250 people inside.
Everybody stay down!
This body cam footage shows police units on the scene in less than 2 minutes, as 911 dispatchers fielded more than 90 calls for help.
I've been hit. I'm bleeding everywhere. People are running everywhere. My friends are inside.
This surveillance video shows Sergeant Ron Heelis, one of the first officers on the scene, leading an entry team to the front door, then cautiously moving in, sweeping his rifle from side to side. The shooter by then had made his way to an office where he was still firing and throwing smoke grenades into the panicked crowd. The Ventura Sheriff's Office writing, hundreds of patrons scrambled to get out of the bar or hide any way they could. Many threw tabletops and chairs through windows, while others hurled themselves through plate glass windows to avoid certain death. 128 bar patrons were injured in the stampede to get out. Dozens of them ran into responding officers.
Is anybody hurt? No? Okay. All right, this way. Right here. Keep your hands up where everybody can see them.
Those who couldn't escape hid in the bathrooms and the attic and called their loved ones and police.
So you get a pretty good idea. That shows, hiding in place, running out, you saw them carrying someone to safety. You saw the other ones coming out, law enforcement directing them where to go. You saw law enforcement quickly checking on the injured, but moving past once they realized that they weren't critical. So those are all things to keep in mind. So what kind of plan do you have? And I know there's a question specifically about liability and so forth. We'll address that in just a moment. But do you have a plan? I think it's more of a danger to not have something in your SOPs, because if something happens in your community, society's so litigious. What if somebody comes after you and says, well, man, they didn't have a plan in their SOP for this. This happens all the time, all over the place now. Why didn't they have that? So I think getting ahead of it and having some type of plan that it's not a weapons response. It's just hey, we have educated our community, and we've educated our employees, our coworkers on how to respond if this happens. And looking at a plan is super important, that you have some type of policy or protocol, that you have some type of SOP that addresses when this happens. This is how we're going to respond as a community, and this is how we suggest you respond as individuals, and making it realistic, and making some type of evacuation map, and some type of tenant notification or lock in place notification, and making sure to identify safe places to hide or exit especially as in your management companies or in your offices. Super important to understand the floor plan, understand what can stop bullets, what can't, understand, do you have lockable rooms to hide in, or is it all open space? Identify objects that can be used in your defense, and, just making sure that you have something in place, not only mentally, as you've, gone through this, we've gone through this fairly quickly. I apologize for running a little bit over, but it's super critical that you prepare in your mind. I'm running to safety. I'm hiding if I have to, and I'm fighting if I have to. My life matters. No one has the right to take my life. That is the critical piece. And there are so many things that you can practically and physically do to prepare yourself. But this is about the mindset, starting it right here and engaging in this conversation with yourself and those around you to make your place of work, your community, your home, wherever you are, a safer place. And just remember the last piece that I shared out of the two main points is that not only does no one have the right to take your life, but your life matters, and that I am here to help you through anything that I can be a part of. I will provide resources for you, not only personally if you're struggling, but for your community. If you want to reach out to me, I can direct you to people that can come in and do live training and come in and actually help you set up protocols and so forth in your places of business. And if that interests you, just reach out and I'll direct you in the right direction. So a couple of takes. I'm just finishing. Here we go. Create an emergency plan, schedule active shooter exercises if you can, identify places of cover, run, hide, and fight, maintain the awareness, mental preparation. I already covered it all. And any questions?
Yes, I will get to the questions now, since we'll just jump right into them. From Robert Westfall, what would your responsibilities be if you are a licensed CAM who is managing a building and you have a licensed concealed carry, and you do carry a concealed weapon on property with board permission?
Well, that would be something you would have to ask legal resource. I am not a legal resource. We live in the great state of Florida, where we have, very forgiving gun laws and the ability to carry and protect ourselves and stand your ground and so forth. But your personal choice would be, predicated on what your company is allowing you to do and represent. And I would check, the legal response is check with your legal resources and whether or not they want it to be allowed. But it's your personal choice on what you do is the liability you're going to carry. So, it's not a clear cut and dry answer.
Sure. While I'm reading this next question, if you can go back to the takeaway points, put that back on the screen while I'm asking you this next one. Perfect. Our clubhouse has a sign that restricts bringing firearms into the clubhouse. We have a cafe that serves alcohol. A member is claiming that he has a permit for a concealed carry. Can we prevent him from carrying his firearm into the clubhouse?
So you can actually trespass, or Starbucks says no firearms allowed in it, but I'm sure people go in there all the time. They're only, you're only going to address it if you want it addressed or if it needs to be addressed. So if you are concerned about somebody carrying a firearm and it says you're not allowed to, you would want to check with not only your HOA bylaws and so forth, and what's allowed and not allowed and how that has to be followed, but also with local law enforcement and if their ability to be involved in requesting that person to not be in that premises. But again, it's, the only real places you're not allowed to carry are federal courts or courts, polling places. There's laws that prevent you from carrying in very specific places like schools. There's not state law that prevents you from carrying in a place of business or a residential area.
Do you recommend that CAMs obtain licenses as well as concealed carry license?
So what I recommend is people not just, a concealed weapon license is sort of like a gym membership. A lot of us get gym memberships and we never use them. And then when we go and use them, we end up getting sore or injured because we haven't worked out in forever. Getting a concealed weapon license gives you the right to carry a firearm, but it gives you no training, no experience, no practical application. And there are people that are trained in disarmament, and you have to be prepared mentally and physically on what you're going to do if you're choosing to carry a firearm. That's a huge responsibility. You need to know your capabilities. So I don't recommend it, but what I do recommend is that everybody take a level of training to the extent that they want to. After Pulse happened, I had a firearms training business, and I would have nurses. I had people affected at Pulse come to me for training, not because they wanted to carry a firearm, but they wanted to be understanding of the capabilities, and God forbid they're in that situation. What do I do? So training is everything, and preparation is everything.
Great.
Okay, let's take one more call.
Sure. Are there documented guidelines available from law enforcement on how to develop a plan for a facility? And if you have a sample emergency plan, can you share that with us?
I will get a hold of something that I can share. If it's someone specific, law enforcement is most likely not going to involve himself. They will come and give you some like general direction, but they're not going to hold liability by providing any particular layout for you. That's going to be something, your legal team would have to draw up. But in terms of just inviting them out to say, hey, look, we did this course, we just want to have a better understanding. Usually they have some type of community officer group that will come out and kind of help with safety and help understand and educate. And that's a great resource to utilize. We pay them with our taxes, and I was one of them. And I would have communities all the time say, hey, can you come in and share some things? And we love doing that. The officers love it when people are reaching out for positive, getting prepared. Very important.
Thank you. Peggy, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Brian. That was awesome. Great information. I'm sure everybody here on the call learned at least one thing and want something or more. We had 254 people on the call, and I just want to commend everyone on the call, board members, property managers. It's just awesome that you continue to build your knowledge about everything that was presented today. You guys are already heroes in my mind, because you were on the call today. I want to leave the 800 line for suicide prevention. It's 800-442-HOPE or 442-4673. Also now I think you can just dial 9